Shalom, my friends. Today's daf yomi is Kesubos daf pay, Kesubos 80. We're going to start on the bottom of 79b. 6 lines from the bottom at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Hamotzi hotzaos al nichse ishto. So he said that the husband has the rights to the fruits of the nichse mulug, of the property that the woman of his wife. So let's say somebody spends money on the property of his wife. So, and now they're getting divorced. So he wants to recoup his investment, meaning to say he invests in the property in order to increase his fruits. Let's say he spends money on the property of his wife. He spent a lot, but he only ate a little bit. Or he spent a little, and he ate a lot. So the basic rule is sorry, it doesn't matter what you put in or what you got out. That's it. It's a sunk cost. Whatever you spent, you spent. Whatever you got. That's it. End of story. So, however, there's an exception to that. The exception is, if he spent money, but he didn't get to eat anything, he didn't take anything out, he should just take an oath of how much he spent, then he would be able to get it back. If he didn't eat anything at all, then he would be able to get the money back. Gemara says, okay, when you say that if you ate a lot and you ate a little bit, if you spent a lot and you ate a little bit, you get to take, you lose it. But if you ate nothing, you get your investment back. What is a little bit? What's the threshold? Kama kima. What's a little bit? Amar Basi, fil grogeris achas. Even if you just ate one fig, then you lose your right to get your investment back. That's if you ate it in a distinguished manner, in a respectable manner. Basically, you ate it sitting down at the table, like a mensch. Amar Rabbi Abba, on top of 88, Rabbi Abba said, Amri Bei Rab, Afilu Shigra de Tamri, even if you ate the dates that were smashed together, then even if that's all he ate, he doesn't get back his investment into it. So even if that's all he ate. By Rabibi chuvtza de tamri mai. Well, what if you ate not the shigra de tamri, but the chuvtza de tamri, which Rashi tells us is after you turn the dates into beer, you have the little residue left, or maybe they're crushed really fine in order to make them into beer. So that amount going to also be considered like you ate something from the nefse mulug of your wife? So they say teku. That question they don't know the answer to. And it's also interesting, like, why don't they know the answer to that? They're making the answers to all these questions. Why all of a sudden is that where they draw the line? They don't know the answer. It's a good question. Let's say you didn't eat it in a respectable manner. So you ate it. How much do you have to eat in a non-fixed manner in order to consider it like it's eating? So the Gemara says, one says the size of an isar, one says the size of a dinar. Dinar is much larger than an isar, either 24 times larger if it's a silver coin, or much larger than that if it's a gold coin. So the value of that. Amri Dayani de Pumpadisa. So the judges of Pumpadisa said, Avad Rav Yehuda uvda b'chavile zemuros. Rav Yehuda did a ruling, and he ruled that the husband was considered to have taken something out of the property by a bundle of the wood of the grapevines. And even though he didn't eat it, but he fed it to his animals, that was considered like he benefited, and he can't get back his investment anymore. Rav Yehuda follows his logic there. He said, I'm Rav Yehuda. If a person ate the orwa, the shvius, or the koyim, that would also be considered like it is a chazaka. What does that mean? So this refers to what we had in Gemara in Baba Basra with respect to establishing your presence on a land. That if a person lives on a property without a deed for 3 years, then it's considered like he owned the property if nobody else made a claim that was my property. Well, let's say one of those 3 years were years where he's unable to really work the land, like or benefit from it. Like for example, it was kolayim. Now I get benefit from kolaya karam, from mixture of fruit in the vineyard, or else you're not allowed to get benefit from the orla. So the first 3 years after you planted the tree, or the sabbatical year, do those years contribute to the chazakah? So Rabbi Yehuda says that those years do contribute to the chazakah, and so therefore, under these circumstances, Rabbi Yehuda is saying that Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's going to apply to this case as well. That it's also going to be considered like it's a chazakah. So with respect to the nechsei melug, even though he's not allowed to eat that, but the animal did eat it. So even though he didn't eat, but the animal did eat, so he's taken away part of the ownership over part. He's taking out something, even though he himself didn't benefit, but he gave it directly to the animal. So says the Gemara, Amar Yaakov Amar Chisda, Motzi Otzos al Nechsei Ishto Ketana, somebody who puts an investment into the property of his wife when she's a minor, and therefore she still has the ability to reject the marriage because she was married off by her mother or brother. Kimotzi al Nechsei Achar Dami. It's like you spent the money on somebody else, and so therefore, just like if you would spend the money on somebody else, you would get back your investment. And so just like if you spend the money on somebody else, you would get back your investment. And so therefore, if the property went up, then you would get back your share of it. If the property went up, so too, and because he's putting his own investment, we say the same law as it applies to the investment in your wife if she's a minor. My time, because otherwise. The rabbis made it to kind of, because otherwise the property would get ruined, because the person would say, why would I invest in this property when she could always reject the marriage, and she'll always reject the marriage, and so therefore, since she'll reject the marriage, at that point, since she'll reject the marriage, we're going to say that he'd be putting in this money for nothing, and so therefore we're not ready to say that. So therefore, to help him invest in the marriage, we say you're going to get the money you invested back. So there was a woman who invested. She got 400 zuz. She inherited it, and so now it's her nechsei melug bechuzai. She's in the place called Chuzai. Azal Gavra. So a man went. So in order to go get the investment, the nechsei melug, he had to spend 600 zuz just to get there. I see arba mea bahadei dekaasi. So in order to go, so he brought this 400 zuz. So he went there to get it. In order to get it, he had to spend the 600 zuz just to get the 400 zuz, and he brought those 400 zuz from Beit Chuzai. When he arrived, he needed to spend another zuz to travel there. He had to spend another one, and so he took it from those 400 zuz, and then he divorced his wife, and he said, "You know what? Give me all the expenses I went out to bring you your inheritance. So give me the 600 zuz." So also came to Rabbi Ami. So she came to Rabbi Ami. The matter came to Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Ami said, "Amarle masha hotzi masha acho." He says, "Well, no, he took some money out from this estate." So that's like we said in the Mishnah. Once you took some money out, you don't get your investment back that you put in to improve it. Rabbanan said to Rabbi Ami, "Amarle Rabbanan Rabbi Ami, that's where you're eating the fruits, where he gets some of the fruits. That was where we say you lose your investment." But but here he's dipping into the principle, and so therefore and so therefore he took this for the purpose of traveling, and so therefore it shouldn't be. So he should still get his investment back. So the Gemara says, "Im Kain." Well, if that's the case, Well, then it's a case of where he invested and he didn't eat anything. And the law is Yishava Kama Hotzi V'Ito. And so under those circumstances, he should take an oath how much he invested, how much he spent, and then he should take it back with an oath. So Gemara says Yishava Kama Hotzi V'Ito. So the Mishnah had said that if he didn't take any money out from the fruits, he should take an oath how much he spent, and then he gets to take it back. Amar Rav Asi. But when do we say this? Rav Asi says, meaning to say that when do we say that? That's when the increase in the profit is equivalent to the amount you spent. And then the husband can swear and take it back. So what is this halacha Rav Asi teaching us? Amar Abaye, it's applying to the following circumstance. That if the praise was actually greater than the amount of money that you spent. If the praise was greater than the amount of money that you spent, not the praise, if the increase in the value, the appreciation was greater than the money that you spent, noto es ha'otzah below shvur, then you could take the investment back without taking an oath. So Amrei Rav Imkain Asila Rume. Well, if that's the case, where the appreciation is greater than the investment, the husband doesn't need to take an oath, then it's going to come and it's going to lead to fraud, because the husband will say that the husband will come along and say that the appreciation is much greater than the investment, and he won't need to take an oath. Like, for example, let's say he spent 30 zuz and the appreciation is 100 zuz, or if it appreciated on their own 100 zuz. The husband can claim that he spent 90 zuz, and he can always benefit without taking an oath. So he's always going to be able to make a huge claim and without having taken an oath. So Rava says as follows: So that what Rav Asi was saying is that if the investment was greater than the appreciation, still all he gets is the investment back, and he gets it only with an oath. So now we said, what's the next question? Let's say the husband put in his place a sharecropper. So put in a sharecropper to work the land in his place. So a sharecropper, generally speaking, has more rights. The sharecropper gets his investment back. So he put in a sharecropper to work the land, and the sharecropper did consume some of the fruits as part of the normal business of a sharecropper. So do we say do we say the sharecropper is really an extension of the husband? And so therefore, just like if the husband ate some of the fruits, he lost all his investment. That's money lost. And so therefore, so since the husband lost his rights and also all of his investment, so to the sharecropper loses it. Or maybe we say, no, that the sharecropper was put in for the land, nothing to do with the husband. And the land that's there is for the sharecropper. And so therefore, the sharecropper needs to work it. And if the husband wouldn't have hired her, the woman would have hired. If the husband wouldn't have hired him, the woman would have hired him. And so therefore, he doesn't lose his rights. And so therefore, the woman has to pay the sharecropper like the normal wages of a sharecropper. And so we discount the fact that we ignore the fact whether or not the husband divorced her. So Maska for Rav Bar Rav Chanan, Ma'ishna. So Rav Bar Chanan says, let's try and bring a proof. He challenges the idea that the sharecropper is just an extension of the husband. Because we learned, how is this different from if we have a sharecropper who goes into his friend's field and not touch the and he plants it without the owner's permission. The law is we evaluate the appreciation and the investment. And the sharecropper, when without permission, he gets whichever's less. If it appreciated, and he gets the investment. If appreciated more than the investment, he gets the investment back. And if the investment is greater than the appreciation, he only gets the share of the appreciation, not the investment. And so here's why don't we say that the sharecropper went in without the permission of the wife, but nevertheless, he should at least get back one of those two. He shouldn't lose everything. Gemara says, well, hasam leika ina shetarach. No, there that case is different. There was nobody working the field. But hachaika bal the tarach here, in this case, the husband is working the field. So that's why it's different. So my havi Allah. So what's the law there? Amar Avuna Breder Rabbi Yeshua, Chazinon ibal arasu. So we see from there what's the case. He says the law is we look to see if the husband really was a sharecropper to begin with. If the husband was a sharecropper, and so therefore the wife was expecting the husband to do it, so so once the husband pulls out, then the sharecropper is also lost. But but if the husband was not a sharecropper, then then the sharecropper was there to work the land. And she would have had to hire a sharecropper, so he has his own independent rights. That's the Gemara, Baal Shemachar Karka, so let's say the husband wants to sell the land, the fruits of the land, that's his rights. So he's allowed to sell the fruits to somebody else. He's allowed to sell it, meaning he has the rights to those fruits as long as they're married, he could sell it. Or maybe they said that when the husband has the rights to the fruits, it's because of Revach Beisa. Meaning to say, Rashi says, they want him to bring the fruits into his house, so there'll be a lot of food there. And it'll be good for her. But he doesn't have the right to sell it. So what's the answer? Yehuda Mar Bar Mareimar Mishmei de Rabba Amar. Masha Asa Aswai. He's allowed to do it. It's a valid sale. Rav Papa says, Mishmei de Rabba. It's not a valid sale. Amar Papa, how do Yehuda Bar Mareimar have a ferishit or elam b'kol itmar? So Rav Papa says, in fact, that which Yehuda said was not actually said explicitly, but rather he didn't hear anything explicit, but he heard about it from an incident. From that incident, he heard a story about a rabbi, and from that incident, he derived that this was the ruling, that it's a valid sale, but really he was wrong. He heard a story, but he didn't paskin correctly from the story. What was the story? And so what was the story that caused Yehuda Mareimar to say in the name of Rabbah that it's a valid sale if the husband sold the fruits to the woman's property? There was once a woman, she brought into the marriage two maids as her nilsei mud property. And the man went and married another woman. And he brought one of the maids to help the second wife. Also kamei de Rava. So the first wife came in front of Rava, and she's saying, he has no right to do that. These women have to work for me. Rava didn't listen. So we see from here that must be, Mareimar was saying, Yehuda Bar Mareimar was saying, it must be that the husband has the right to do with the fruits of her labor as ever he wants. So Yehuda Bar Mareimar saw this, also he saw it's a valid sale. He says, no, that's not the reason. The whole purpose is you want it to be clean in the house. You want it to be good for the house. This is also Revach Beisa, because both women are living in the same house, and the maids are cleaning the house, and they're making the house look all good. And so therefore he misinterpreted the story. And so we see the halacha is the husband doesn't have the right to sell it. My time we're concerned that maybe if he sells it for its fruits, he sells the fruits, then maybe the land will depreciate because the purchaser will not do his job and he won't care for it properly because he knows it's only his for a short amount of time. It's like a rental. And so, but when he's in the hands of the husband, we don't have that concern because the husband's expecting his wife to die first, and so he's going to take care of the property better. Rava Amar Mishum Revach Beisa. Rava says no. The reason why it's no good is because we want it there to be Revach Beisa. We want there to be the property to be in the house, and so therefore we want it to be for the good of the wife, and so therefore he can't sell it and use it to invest in his other assets or whatever. My benayo, ika benayo. So what's the difference? Ar demikarva masa. So the difference between them is, let's say there's a field that's close to the city. So according to Abaye, we don't have to be concerned that maybe the purchaser is not going to work it properly because the husband can see the field. And if he sees he's not doing a good job, he's going to step in. And so therefore the husband could sell the land for its fruits if it's right next to the city. Whereas according to Rava, you're still going to not have any revach for the house because he's not going to get the fruits there. Or inami bao arasu. Or else we could say that, what about a circumstance where the husband himself is a sharecropper and he works the field himself? So, and he takes a portion of it for a portion of the fruits, and the rest he gives to the purchaser. So, according to Abaye, we don't have to be concerned that the husband is because he's working the field. We don't have to be concerned that he's going to lose it and ruin it because he's still expecting his wife to die, and so therefore he could sell the fruit for its fruit. But in the case, the fact that it's no revach ubeisa, there won't be any revach for the house, so it won't be as much, and so therefore he can't sell it. Inamai, or else, alternatively, zuzevika avabahu iska. Or additional thing is what about the circumstance where he sells the property for money and he wants to do business with it? So according to the idea of Rava, he could do it because he's going to get money or do other business. But according to the position of Baye, we have to be concerned that the field is not going to be cared for and it wouldn't be allowed. So now we have the next case. The next case is, let's say, Shomeres Yavam, a woman who is waiting for Yibum from her brother-in-law, which we say she's the Shomeres Yavam, so that she has a Zika. It's not, in many cases, not as if she's adulterous at that point, she doesn't get death. It's just a Zika, it's a lav. So therefore, under those circumstances, could she sell the field? So Shomeres Yavam Shenafu Nechasim. Both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that it's a valid sale. She could sell it. Even lechatchila, she could sell it. And then the husband can't stop her. But let's say she dies or she's a Shomeres Yavam and she left over the Nechasim that fell to her when she was fully married. Maya asu b'ksubasa. What should they do with her ksuba? What should they do with her ksuba under those circumstances? What should they do with the ksuba under those circumstances? Meaning to say, let's say she dies while she's a Shomeres Yavam, and she left over the nechasim that had fallen to her while she was married. What happens to the ksuva and also to the tzom barzel and all those other things that she brought with her into the ksuva? And with the nechsei mulug, the properties that go out with her. Beis Shammai says, well, since this nechsei mulug, yachloku yorshei balam yorshei av. So those who inherit the husband, i.e., her husband's family or her husband's brother, whoever inherits the husband, the assumption is that the Yavam, because the husband has no brothers, so the assumption is the Yavam. So Yachoku Yorshe Balam Yorshe Av, they split it with the heirs, with the woman's side of the family, because they have an equal right. Beis Shammai is saying they both have an equal claim. And so therefore, neither one is more established. Whereas Beis Hillel says, Nechasim b'chazkasam. The properties remain in their presumptive status. So therefore, the tzom barzel, the stuff that was in its status that they just have to pay the woman at the conclusion of the ksuba, that remains whoever was holding them prior to the death. Uksuba, and the idea of the ksuba, b'chazkas yorshei abal, they go to the heirs of the husband because they still have the ksuba. What about the nechsei mulug, where the husband has the fruits and the woman has the property? That goes to the woman's family. Let's say the first husband, her husband, left her money, and the Yavam inherited them with all. Let's say the husband, the deceased husband left behind money, and the Yavam inherited with all his other brother's possession, and there's a lien on them to pay the ksuba. So then, even after she had yibum with the brother, there's still a lien on it, and he doesn't have the ability to spend it. So then, what should you do? Then yilakach ben karka. So this is a case where he leaves behind money. what does he do? He buys real estate with them, who ochal peros, and then he gets the fruits because it's going to be considered nechse muluk. Peros atlushim and akarka. This is the same principle we saw before. The fruits that were left, he buys the real estate, peros, and he uses the money, and he gets the fruits of that real estate. It's the same dispute we had before. The fruits that were attached to the ground. The Paris, the Kamen, you have more Paris. The same idea we saw before. You evaluate what's the land worth with the fruits, without it. Mosar, you lock up Pankaka. You take that difference and you buy real estate. Paris. The same dispute we saw before. Paris, the fruits that are attached to the ground belong to him. But the ones that are removed from the ground, call them Zachaband. Whoever gets them first. So this is something new. The Chamim say that the fruits that are attached to the ground belong to him, but if they're removed from the ground, we don't know who gets them. So we say whoever gets them first acquires them. Meaning to say as follows, Kadmahi, then, and let's say she gets them first, and so therefore they are metaltalin, and so therefore Yilachach ben Karki buys real estate, Paris, and then we eat the fruit from them. Kanasa, let's say the Yavam marries her, Harei Ishto Koldavar. She is like his wife for every matter, except for one major difference. That the first husband, he's the one, his assets have an heir on them to pay the ksuba. And you can't say to her, the husband cannot say to her, that your ksuba is placed on the table, meaning to say that he set aside specific assets for the ksuba, and all the other ones are released from the lien. All of his assets have a lien on them for the ksuba. You can't designate one asset for the ksuba. All the assets are designated for the ksuba. Gerusha, let's say he divorces the Yavim divorces his wife. All she gets is the ksuba. The Gemara is going to explain what this means. Let's say he remarries her. She's like all women who are married and then who are divorced and then remarried. Then it's that they're remarried on the basis of the first ksuba, and so therefore the ela ela ksuba bavad, and so therefore all she gets is the ksuba, and he doesn't need to be obligated to her for a new ksuba. So the Gemara is going to discuss all this, but we have now just said it. We'll review it, God willing. The Daf Yomi on Shabbos is at 6 and Pirkei Avot at 5:15 p.m. Look forward to studying with you over Shabbos. Everybody should have good Shabbos.